I think this one is very different than what we've had in the past. A lot of people are comparing it to what happened in 2008, which I think was caused a lot by bloated balance sheets and off-balance sheet transactions by the financial industry. So it was really caused by a financial collapse. Now we are fighting a virus that is turned out to be very, very deadly, and we got to take incredible precautions to go and attack that virus so we win that war. And that is causing our government and our states to close down places, to have people shelter in place. I've been in our house here in Sonoma, California, for 13 days without seeing anybody from the outside except the people that my wife and not even our grandkids. And it is not much fun, but it's something that one has to do. And I think we will beat this because now I think we're really getting the opportunity to get the tests out there, so we'll find out how many people really are carriers and what we have to do to conquer this thing, which is going to be painful, but hopefully painful for just a short period of time.
I mean, Sandy, you mentioned that you think it's very different from, say, the 2008 crisis that was more financial in nature, yet financial stocks are down sharply. The KBW Banks Index is down double-digit percentages today. It's down about 50% from its high in January.
Believe me, I know that personally.
So I was going to say, what do you make of the level of selling in bank stocks? Is it overdone?
You know, I think that, the bank stocks are reacting to the fact that they are support systems for a lot of our industry, for our hotel industries, for a lot of small businesses, for the airline industry, for Boeing. And those industries have been basically, a lot of them shut down 50%, 70%, close to 100% in cases, which is really important that we do that. But I think our government seems to be, on the right track in talking about getting money to people that are out of jobs and are laid off and can't go to work, and trying to help the companies that, not through any of their own doing, are ending up not being able to fly or whatever, so that I think we really have to have more of a public-private partnership where our government works with our state and local, federal government works with companies together to get us through this crisis. And I think when the president the other day had people from the drug store industry, the drug industry, the hospital industries together, talking how they're working together. I think that was fantastic, and people related to that, and I think we have to do more of that. We have to get...
What should the banks be doing specifically in terms of trying to get things moving again?
Well, I think a couple things. Number one, I think that working together with the Fed and the OCC, where they agreed not to do any buybacks on their own company stock through this period, I think sends the right message that they're really concentrating on the strength of their balance sheet. The fact that they didn't have to go to the Fed window, but all the banks agreed to do that, I think also was very, very important, so that it shows that we're working together, the private sector and the public sector. But one thing we're not doing is that a lot of banks, as well as other companies, that really all industries, have created blackout periods where they can't, while the officers and directors of companies can't buy their own stock in a blackout period that can run 4 to 6 weeks before they're going to report earnings. And that, for most companies, are going to report their earnings in the beginning of April through the month of April. So they're in blackout periods now. I think this is a very important time for CEOs and leaders of industry to really show leadership. And I think one way they can show leadership is that if they change these rules, or have the Treasury Secretary for banks and the SEC for others telling them that we don't need the rules of blackout periods during this specific time for individuals that work in companies. I think that actions always speak louder than words, and I think that a CEO that's in there buying a lot of their stock, like Jamie did at a bad time in J.P. Morgan, and everybody still remembers it, or Charlie Scharf last Friday buying stock in Wells Fargo, that sends a good message, and I'd like to see that message coming from all of corporate America. So somebody has to give them the ability to get out from under their blackout rules at this point in time.
Sandy, it's Sarah. One of the differences and similarities people are making with the financial crisis back in 2008, the Fed and the government were able to come in and really rescue the system, unfreeze the markets, put in place all sorts of extraordinary action to get the economy and the markets moving correctly again. And one of the fears here is that the Fed is throwing all of its bullets at this. The government is talking about trillion-dollar stimulus and bailing out industries, and yet there's still so much fear and uncertainty because the nature of this crisis is health and biological, and there's no fix for that from the authorities. I wonder if you think there's anything that they can do, either the government and the Fed, to make it better and to help markets function more properly and to get us out of this economic deep freeze.
Well, I think that the best thing that they can do is have Congress pass the legislation that the House has already passed, so the president can sign it, that they can get the stimulus bill and the bill to help industries that have been hurt, not by their own doing, but because of what we had to do to go fight this health crisis, and stop the talk and come up and do something. This is a time where really all of America should come together and really shine the light of how great this country is. And the only way we're going to be able to do that is stop the bickering with each other and work together to. And I think if we did that, you'd see the markets do better. That the banks will be able to perform their functions better. The government would be able to perform their functions better. And we have the greatest healthcare system in the world, the greatest research, the greatest hospitals. And while we don't have enough beds if this thing comes down all at once, we have a lot of things that we can do, and I think we're starting to do it in creative ways, like sending hospital boats up both coasts and other things, and I think that really over the next 2 weeks, 2 more weeks after this week, we will have a good idea about how bad that this virus is, because we will have done enough tests, and we will know what we have to do to really stamp it out and stamp it out quickly, so that we can all go back to work again and hopefully use this crisis as a way to really encourage us to really get to work spending money on the infrastructure of this country, both technologically as well as from the point of view of transportation, public transportation, highways, bridges, and all these things that we have not done over these many decades, so that we, A, would help the economy, it would make people feel better, we'd be putting our country in a better position to benefit over the next decades to come.
Sandy, just quickly before we let you go, I know we've gone a bit longer than we said. I wondered if you had any quick message of support for Jamie Dimon, your former protege, who I know you then did have a bit of a falling out with at one point in your career, but he's recovering from home, may well be watching the show. If you had any messages of support for him.
Well, I do, and I sent a message to him on Friday, saying that I'm glad that he's home from the hospital. I'm glad that he's recovering. We need his leadership. The country needs his leadership. So get better quick. And also, his birthday is 3 days before mine, so I wished him a happy birthday, of which he wished me back one.
Well, there we go. It's a lovely message. And Sandy, happy birthday to you as well. I'm not sure exactly what the date is, but we appreciate you joining us today. Sandy Weill,
so you remember it for next year. It's March 16th.
Okay, very good. Sandy, thank you so much. Sandy Weill there.